the existence and the further operations of the anti-graft agency, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, is under threat. The suit was instituted by the Kogi State government and 15 other states, and is contesting the constitutionality of the laws establishing the EFCC. The Supreme Court has scheduled that it will hear that matter on the 22nd of October on these suits filed by the 16th state government challenging the legality of the EFCC. Meanwhile, we have seen the opinions of a prominent senior lawyer and former NBA president, Mr. Olisa Agbakoba, who drew the attention of the National Assembly to constitutional issues relating to law enforcement agencies in Nigeria and factors inhibiting the government's objective of abolishing corruption as stated in Section 13 of the Constitution. Well, in two separate letters, Mr. Olisa Agbakoba wrote to the National Assembly, to the Senate and the House of Reps on a letter dated 14 October 2024, and he has said the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission was an unlawful organization which he believed was unconstitutionally established. He said, quote, I very strongly believe the EFCC is unconstitutionally established. The powers under which it was established go beyond the powers of the National Assembly. The EFCC is an unlawful organization. That's according to Mr. Olisa Agbakoba, a former NBA president. Meanwhile, human rights activist and lawyer Femi Falana has written to the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives to oppose the view expressed by the ex-president of the Bar Association, Olisa Agbakoba, regarding the legal status of the EFCC. To get more clarity and insight into this, I have joining me Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. It's live for us in Lagos. It's good to see you tonight on the program, Mr. Falana. Nigerians would like to know your views because you have said you do not agree with the stance of Mr. Olisa Agbakoba, who says that the formation or the establishment of the EFCC is on a faulty ground.
Well, with profound respect to my very good friend and colleague, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, it's not a new argument, really. When the ICPC was established in the year 2000, there was a case instituted by the Ondo state government against the federal government, and all the other states were defendants. In that case, the Supreme Court subjected the Establishment Act of the ICPC to a serious constitutional interpretation and came to the irresistible conclusion that by virtue of Section 15 subsection 5, which has imposed a duty on the Nigerian state to fight corruption, the ICPC was properly created by the National Assembly in exercise of its powers under Section 4 of the Constitution. In like manner, the EFCC was also created by the National Assembly to fight other economic and financial crimes. And we must not forget the fact that Nigeria is not operating on its own alone. By the year 2001, Nigeria had been blacklisted by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, otherwise called Groupe d'Action Financière in French. This body had blacklisted 23 countries for not cooperating enough in the global fight against money laundering. And that each of these 23 countries will have to put in place an agency or a commission to fight money laundering, advanced fee fraud, and other economic crimes. And that was why the EFCC Act was drafted and sponsored by the executive in 2002. As a matter of fact, the law was enacted in 2002. The EFCC was established consequently in April 2023. Again, by 2004, 2003, by 2004, the law was amended to take care of other concerns. For me, the ICPC and the EFCC like the Code of Conduct Tribunal, have come to state what we should be demanding are measures to make these institutions autonomous, not under the control of any government. And the Supreme Court has maintained rather repeatedly with respect to the EFCC, that, or the EFCC and ICPC, that these are common agencies, that shouldn't be under the control of the federal government. They are common agencies to fight economic crimes in our country, to fight financial crimes in our country, to fight corruption in our country.
So, Mr. Falana, apologies, if I may jump in quickly. There are those who will say, yes, some of these anti-graft agencies have come to say they've been established, they've been doing their jobs. But the question will be, is it established in law that the processes through which they were established in the first place was faulty? Guarantee that they have been established.
No.
But can we say that next time, are we able to learn that the EFCC, for example, was wrongly or faultily established against the constitution of the federal government, considering the processes through which such an establishment should be put in process in the first place?
I am saying, Sheung, the EFCC and the ICPC were established the same way. It was the executive that sponsored the bill under the Olusegun Obasanjo administration. One was established, the law was enacted in 2000, the other one in 2002, amended in 2004. So it's the same method, i.e. anchored, the two bodies were established in pursuance of the duty imposed on the Nigerian state under Section 15 subsection 5, that the Nigerian state, Nigeria shall abolish all corrupt practices and abuse of power.
But Mr. Falana, the legal argument, apologies, sir. Mr. Falana, the legal argument is whether or not the federal government can imposingly establish these without the consent of the state, which according to the Constitution has to be carried along. Those are the arguments, isn't it, before the Supreme Court?
No, the Supreme Court made the point in the case of AG Ondo and AG of the Federation that this duty is imposed on the federal government and the state government. And in other words, state governments are also not prohibited from setting up their own agencies. The Kano state government has done that since the time of, I think, of Governor Shekarawu. And that body is fighting corruption. Even though there are efforts by the federal court in Kano to frustrate the work of the agency. I think Oyo State also has its own agency. Even Lagos State enacted its own law. The body has not been put in place. So the state government are also required to set up their own anti-corruption agencies. If they so desire, these bodies are to work with the EFCC and the ICPC so that the monster, the menace of corruption and other economic crimes in our country can be frontally attacked. But you know, this battle is ideological. We are talking of big people, former governors, sitting governors, president, and the rest of them. But nobody is talking of the poor. Today in Lagos, and this has not interested your medium. Today in Lagos, 22 young people were arrested for trying to lay a wreath in memory, in honor of those who were killed in Lekki or in Lagos State during the NSAS protest in 2020. On Tuesday, about 76 Nigerians are going to be charged with treasonable felony for protesting against worsening economic conditions in the country. But it's only when it concerns the rich or the bourgeoisie. Oh, this law meant to fight corruption is illegal. This law meant to fight money laundering is illegal. But I am saying the Supreme Court has made the point. And not just in one case. AG Ondo State and AG of the Federation, Governor Shema and FRN Dari and FRN, Yame and FRN, and so on and so forth.
Mr. Falana, so apologies.
EFCC,
yeah, the question. And by the way, sir, by the way, sir,
properly created to fight.
But by the way, sir,
that's the position of the law.
Yeah, we are covering that matter you mentioned in Lagos and the subsequent release.
Yes.
But I'm making direct reference
to
Section 12 of the Constitution. And there are legs into subsection 1, 2, and if you look at subsection 3, there is, the Constitution is very succinct. It says, that this section shall not be presented to the president for assent and shall not be enacted unless it is ratified by a majority of all the houses of assembly in the federation. And that is the point that some of these states are furthering in the court to say they were not aware. The federal government went all by itself to procure or to establish this institution, and on that grounds, they are left out in that process, and on that grounds, that establishment is faulty and unconstitutional. Is it possible for us to repair it as a people? Because that is, to some people, ultra vires.
You can only invoke Section 12 of the Constitution if you are talking of an agreement that has been ratified by Nigeria or by the president on behalf of Nigeria. And the law says such an agreement or a treaty will not become enforced, cannot be enforced in Nigeria unless it is domesticated, unless it is enacted into law by the National Assembly. We're not talking of any treaty here. We are talking of a law, of a bill sponsored by the executive, passed properly by the National Assembly. Nobody has said the required majority did not pass either the ICPC Act bill into law or the EFCC law bill into law. So we're not talking of Section 12. We're talking of Section 15, subsection 5, that has imposed a duty on the federal government, the state government, and local government to fight corruption and abuse of power in Nigeria. That's all. That's it.
Well, in all of this, one thing, apart from the legal arguments in court, the one fundamental thing that is that we need to look at as a people is whether or not corruption is really being fought. And I love the fact that there is a senator who is now looking at a bill which is, is in other crimes like the UK, the source of wealth law, where a Nigerian or a public office holder will have to explain how he's got his wealth. Do you think this is one other way for us to effectively fight corruption in this country, Mr. Falana?
Come back again. When you're talking about federalism, my very good friend, Dr. Agbakoba, has written about what he calls cooperative federalism. It was expanding the theory propounded by the late Justice Nikki Toby in the case of Elufioye and the Federal Republic of Nigeria, when Justice Toby said, in our own environment, our own federalism is a cooperative one. And I'm saying the Supreme Court has further expatiated on this by talking about that these institutions are common agencies. They are not the agency of the federal government. The same thing goes for the police. It goes for the INEC and the State Security Service. There are decisions of the Supreme Court on this matter. But unfortunately, if you take police powers, for instance, I have written extensively on this, that governors our governors have failed to exercise police powers with the president as prescribed by the Constitution. Little for these other agencies. Once the Supreme Court has said, these are common agencies, it behoves on state governments to say, sorry, we want to have our members on the board of this institution. We want to tell the National Assembly, please perform your oversight functions as set out in Section 37 of the EFCC Act, which stipulates that not later than September 30th of every year, the EFCC shall submit its annual report to the 2 chambers of the National Assembly. This is done every year. The reports are never debated. Now, you also have the board. The EFCC has a 21-member board. Most of them are officials of the government. Director General of the State Security Service, Director General of Intelligence Agency, Governor of the Central Bank, and so on and so forth. It is high time now. We demanded for representation that will reflect the judgments of the Supreme Court, that these are common, that the EFCC is a common agency. If it is a common agency, state governments must have their accredited representatives in the board. Local government should have their members in the board. And of course, civil society organizations. There are 4 members now appointed by the president to that board. We should now move to have these members or civil society members appointed by the organization, nominated by the organizations that are involved. So my own position is that we should take advantage of the law to control these agencies, to monitor the activities of these agencies. And we must never forget the fact that the staff of ICPC and EFCC are not more than 10,000. And we expect them to monitor the activities of the federal government, 36 state government, and 774 local government. And that is why we should. It's not about, yes, it's good. We once had the law that once you are charged with unlawful enrichment, the onus was on you to prove that your money, your wealth has been earned legitimately. It was also the National Assembly that amended that law to remove that provision. I'm talking of the Supreme Court endorsed that provision in the case of Daodu and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But the National Assembly members, I think in 2012 or thereabout, decided to remove that provision. If the concerned legislator wants to reintroduce that section, that would be very good. But what is important is for Nigerians to own the anti-corruption campaign, because the majority of our people are victims of corruption, monumental corruption.
Mr. Falana, let me take you quickly to the issue of the economy, because I know you and I have had conversations on these for a while. But you have asked, and other people have said, that the government, federal government, should reverse some of its policies in the removal of subsidies and maybe focus on some other things. But the World Bank is saying there must be consistencies in the policy direction, and if the federal government tries to reverse some of these policies, it spells doom for Nigeria and its economy for the nearest future. Let me get your view on that position of the World Bank.
I can predict here, I can say here, without any fear of contradiction, that the federal government will soon be compelled to review economic policies that are subverting the democratic process, economic policies that are pauperizing our people, economic policies that are increasing poverty in the country. The same World Bank has just revealed, to the embarrassment of the government, that we now have 129 million very, very poor Nigerians, or people they say are dimensionally poor, and that 14 million of them have been added in the last 1 year. The same bank is asking the government, please punish the Nigerian people by removing all subsidies. There is no country in the West, and I'm talking of the country that set up the World Bank and the IMF. There's no country in the West today that does not subsidize agriculture, education, and so on and so forth. As we are talking, I'm not sure whether the Vice President is back from Sweden. Sweden has the best welfare policy in Western world today. In fact, in the Norwegian countries now, And I think particularly, no, not Sweden. I think one of them.
Part of the Scandinavian countries. Yeah.
In Holland, the country is closing down its prisons because young people are no longer committing crimes. Oh yes. In America today, President Biden has canceled close to 5 trillion student loans. And that is subsidizing education. In Europe, France, Britain, and the rest of them, they are subsidizing electricity, subsidizing gas, and so that people can live a better life. And by the way, Sheung, why are our people going to Europe and America to have their children there? Why? Because the future is guaranteed for them. And we also have those laws here that have guaranteed a decent life for our people. We have the National Health Insurance Act in Nigeria. We have the People's Bank Act in Nigeria. We have the Pension Reforms Act in Nigeria. We have the National Housing Act in Nigeria. Now, it is high time we made these laws enforceable in our country so that the government can be accountable.
Mr. Falana, if I may jump in quickly. Yeah, and I'd like to ask you, the government of the day, for example, will say that it has institutionalized a student loan scheme. It will also say that there is the credit corps, the credit facility organization, to be able to give some security for welfare and social security to Nigerians. And they will also say that they are all going all out to give incentives and some very soft packages for the poorest of the poor in our society. But if you are saying that you are joining some of those who are advocating for a reversal of some policies, major would be the petrol subsidy scheme, the removal of that, and also the electricity subsidy, and what we have seen now in the Bane and the rise in the levies on those. What can you specifically tell this government that will bring the kind of succor that you are talking about if you truly oppose the World Bank stand? Because the World Bank says that you need to keep helping the poor so that you reduce poverty in the land and do not reverse some of these policies. But in your own view, what are the policies that you think they are not in the interest of the Nigerian people?
So let us take the World Bank and the IMF out of our discussion, because those agencies were set up, the Bretton Woods institutions were set up to underdevelop our countries, developing countries. These institutions impose or rather influence our governments to take loans when you can generate enough funds in your country. These institutions do not contribute to the task of recovering looted wealth for our country so that we can have money for development. All they are saying, let Nigerian poor people tighten their belt, according to them now, for 15 years. They came here in 1986. The World Bank influenced the Babangida military junta to impose the structural adjustment program on our people. We won then. And it didn't work. And the government said there was no alternative to SAP. At the end of the day, the economy was sapped. The currency was floated as we're having it now. And you had a sharp devaluation of the currency. Nigeria has not fully recovered. Later they apologized. World Bank, you regretted the imposition of structural adjustment program. The same institution is coming back now by asking the government to embrace and impose and implement neoliberal economic policies designed by the same institution. What we are therefore saying, the government must abandon these policies. You must control your currency. I was surprised during the week, the governor of the central bank, Mr. Yemi Cardozo, said, oh, we are helpless. How can you be helpless?
All right, when Mr. Falana.
Black, what do you call them?
Mr. Falana.
The alternative market.
Yeah.
When they are fixing the dollar.
We are totally out of time, sir.
So the government must take control of the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Falana, for your time. Always a pleasure having you join us. And that's our show for tonight, everyone. Man, thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimberley. Bye-bye.